it's Christy. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to day 16 of my 2024 holiday card series. Today I'm going to be making a card using Lawn Fawn's new I Heart Pandas with Christmas Dreams, Beachy Christmas, Christmas Fishes, Sent with Love, and the Frosty Family add-on. So I've stamped those images on Spectrum Noir Ultra Smooth Premium White cardstock with Lawn Fawn Jet Black ink, and I'll be coloring with my Copic markers. So I'm starting with these adorable new pandas. I absolutely love them. I think they are the cutest ever. And they are also super easy to color, which is so nice. So I am going to just color in the white parts of their bodies using E000 and E00. I'm staying very close to the outside edge of the line because I want them to be mostly white. I just want to give them a little bit of a creamy color to the white parts. And that was looking a little bit too peach toned, so I decided to go over that with an E40, which is just going to dull that down a tiny bit. And I just feathered that into the white areas and then left the rest of them white. And then I'm going to move on to some warm grays. I'm using W00, W1, and W3. I will do the little tops of the ornaments with the W3 and add a bit of that to the Santa hat and the whites of the stockings and the gift. And then I'll blend that out with W1. I'm also going to use the W1 to add a little bit of shading to the candy cane and the stripe across each of the ornaments. And then I'll blend that out with the W00. And again, I'm going to leave some white space on each of those items. And then I'm going to give my pandas some rosy cheeks using R00 and R21. A little oval shape on the cheek area with that R21, and then blending out the edges with the R20. And then I did go back in the center with that R21 with a touch of extra color. And then I'll move on to red. I'm using R24, R29, and R39. And to really keep this coloring simple, I decided to do all of the accessory images in just red and white. So I'm going to color everything else with red using that R39 first. I even added just a touch of that into the red stripes of the candy cane, and I'll put that on the outside edges of each of those ornaments. And then I'm going to blend out with the R29, which is such a vibrant Christmas red. I absolutely love that shade. And I am also going to fill in the red stripes on the candy cane with just that, with the R39, because there really wasn't room to squeeze a third shade in there. I will leave a little bit of space for that third shade on the ornaments though, because I want them to look really nice and shiny. So I'm going to fill in everything else with that R24, which has such a warmth to it. I absolutely love this combination. And I'm going to finish off the little bow and the ornaments, and then I will go back and do the Christmas hat. I almost forgot about that, but thankfully I remembered just in time. And just like that, the coloring is already done for this card. Super easy. So I'm going to trim these images out with their matching dies. For the background, I'm starting with a piece of Bristol Smooth Surface cardstock, and I am going to create a red sky. Originally, my idea for this card was to have a green sky in the background behind the bamboo that I'm going to be adding. But at the last second, I decided to go red. I thought it would be fun to do a red sky. I don't think I've ever done one before, but I just thought that would be something really unique and different. So I'm using Festive Berries first as the darkest, and then I'm coming in with my middle shade, which is going to be Candied Apple, and then my darkest shade is going to be Aged Mahogany. And I'm working my way from the center outward. I left a little bit of white area in the middle that I am going to end up filling in, but I wanted to keep that nice and light. I didn't want to work over that a bunch of times and have it get darker than I intended, so that's why I left it white from the beginning. And then once I have all of my shades on there, I'm going to work my way back to the center. So I'm going back to that candied apple and then to my festive berries. And that's when I will fill in that center. Now I did want to add a little bit more of that aged mahogany because I felt like the edges weren't quite dark enough for me. So I'm just going to work my way back around and toward that center. And I am really glad that I decided to go red. I almost chickened out and went back to the green, but I decided to do something bold today, and I think it paid off. I really like the end result. I am going to spritz some water onto an acrylic block and pick that up with a thin paintbrush, tap it all over the background, let that react with those Distress Oxide inks for about 30 seconds, and then I'll blot that up with a paper towel. That's just going to lift some of the color and give me kind of like some distant snowflakes or stars. And then I'm also going to add some of that aged mahogany and mix that up with a little bit of water just to give the scene some depth. So I'm going to tap that all over the background. I didn't have quite enough water on there left to mix up, so I just added another spritz and continued tapping that all over the background. And I really like how that looks. And then, of course, I need the white of the stars. It's going to be stars on my card today, but it could also be snowfall if you wanted it. So I'm picking up some of my Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White, which is just white acrylic paint in this little jar. I'm going to mix that up with some water, and I'll tap this all over the background as well. And I'm trying to get some different size droplets so that I have a nice variation of different stars. So once I have that nice and full, I will set this panel aside to dry. And I'm going to move on to the next part of my background, which is going to be using this bamboo backdrop. And I'm going to die cut that out of some Lawn Fawn cilantro cardstock. And that stayed together in one piece, which is great because that's actually going to make it a lot easier to add my details. And I'm going to do that with some Copic markers. So I am taking a YG17 marker, and I'm going to add a little bit of that to each of the little knuckles that make up the bamboo. And the one thing about coloring with Copics on colored cardstock is that it's also saturating the cardstock, so it looks darker at first than how it will end up looking. So I added that YG17 first because I wanted to see how that looked, but I quickly realized that I wanted to go a little bit darker. So I'm going to add in the G28 right over top of that. I'm not going quite as much as the YG17. I'm doing a little bit of a thinner stroke for that part. And then I am going to bring in YG11. And I want to add a little bit of shading to the stalks of the bamboo. So I am just kind of figuring out the direction that I want to go with those and adding a little bit of shading. And again, it is going to look darker now than it is going to end up looking just because it is also saturating that paper. You don't notice it as much on white cardstock, although it does dry back a bit from your original coloring. But on the colored cardstock, because it is more absorbent, it just really shows up darker than what it's going to look like. So this didn't end up being very dark. You can see the side on the left is already drying to be very, very light. And so I'm going to go back over that with the YG17. But again, I'm just using a little bit of a thinner stroke. So it's almost as if I am blending out the YG17 with the YG11 just because I left a little bit more of a wider stroke with the YG11 first. So I'm just going to go through and quickly add. I love how fast this card is coming together. That's the wonderful thing about coloring animals or objects that are really simple to color, like pandas, penguins are another one, polar bears. Anything that just has one or two colors can just be super simple to color. and that just makes your cards really quick and easy. So if you ever need a card in a short amount of time, definitely pull out some animals that just don't require a lot of detail. But speaking of detail, I am now going to color in all of the leaves on the bamboo, starting with that G28 at the base of each of the leaves where it is connected to the bamboo. And then I am going to blend out with the YG17. And that's why it was so great to leave this die intact, because I can kind of be a little bit sloppy and fast with it. And I don't have to worry about bending up those little delicate leaves because the cardstock is holding them in place that is around them. And then I'll blend out that YG17 with the YG11 and just take that to the tips of the leaves so that I get a nice fade. And I am trying to go very quick. Like I said, I wanted to show you guys how quickly a card like this could come together. So you absolutely could take a little bit more time with it if you wanted to, but I think it ended up looking pretty nice, even just doing it quickly like I did. So now that everything is colored in, I'm going to pop out all of the negative pieces. And there's a bunch of little ones too in the little nooks and crannies, so make sure that you do get all of those out so that you can fully see the background that you're going to be placing behind this overlay. So they pop out super fast and easy. I didn't even use a metal shim for this. I just ran it through with my regular sandwich in my die cutting machine, and everything popped out beautifully. So I'm going to set that aside, and next I'm going to work on my hills, and I'm actually going to do snowdrifts. Again, I went back and forth between whether I wanted to do like a green grass or snowdrifts on the background, but I decided to go with the snow since it is a Christmas card, and I thought the white would just help the green and red have a lot of pop. So I am taking some Stitch Hillside borders from Lawn Fawn, and I am lining up where I want them to go using that bamboo background, and then I am taping them into place with a little bit of post-it tape, and then carefully maneuvering that bamboo die cut around the dies so that the dies stay perfectly in place. And then I can run this white panel through my die cut machine, and I'm going to get both snowdrifts that I need with one pass. So I will just peel those off. And then I wanted to add a little bit of shading to those as well. And I didn't want to bring in blue because we didn't have any blue on the card. So I decided to go with the E40, which was the last shade that I used on my pandas. That way it will tie into the pandas, but it won't look exactly like the pandas because they also had the other two colors. So I'm going to pop the shorter of the two snowdrifts into my MISTI and stamp my sentiment, and I'm building a sentiment using 3 different stamp sets. It's the I Heart Pandas, Beachy Christmas, and the Simply Winter Sentiments. And I am going to stamp part of the phrase using Versafine Onyx Black ink, and how I did that was I lined up the entire sentiment, but then I peeled off the word Christmas because I wanted to stamp that in a different color. And then I stamped down all of this, and then I'm going to clean off this sentiment, but before I pull it up, I'm going to replace that word Christmas so that I know that it is perfectly lined up. Then I'll peel away the rest of the sentiment and only stamp that word using Lawn Fawn Lobster ink. And that way I was able to get a nice two-toned sentiment. I'm going to pop my card base in my MISTI, which is more of the Lawn Fawn Cilantro cardstock, and I'm going to stamp on the inside with Noble Fur ink. And I'm doing another panda from I Heart Pandas, and the Happy Holidays sentiment is from the Simply Winter Sentiments. And I am just making sure to give that ink extra time to make contact with the cardstock so I get a nice crisp image with that panda. So now I'm ready to start assembling, and the first thing I'm going to do is take that Distress Oxide blended background and glue it to my card front. That is going to cover it up completely. It is an A2 standard size card, so it is 4¼ wide by 5½ tall. Next, I'm going to place the taller of my 2 snowdrifts, and then I am going to add my bamboo backdrop. So I am just running that liquid glue all around the edges, and then also adding it here and there to the bamboo stalks so that they will also lay flat on the card. And then I'm just going to line that up over top and make sure that the corners are nice and straight. Adjust that as needed, and then just hold that down into place for a few seconds so that ink has a chance to dry. And then I'm going to add my last snowdrift. So I decided to leave this card completely flat for mailing today. And as I was adding this last snowdrift, I saw that there was a little leaf that was poking up behind the snowdrift, and I didn't want that showing because it was only just a tiny sliver of it, so I just snipped that off with my Cutter Bee Teflon coated scissors. And now I can bring in my images. I'm going to start with the panda couple. I think they are so cute. And I did use the extra die that allows you to add something into their paws. And the boy panda is going to get the little gift, so I'm just going to tuck that in, make sure I have it just where I want it, and then the girl panda is going to hold on to the candy cane. So again, I'm just going to tuck that under her paw and make sure I have that where I want it, hold that glue in place for a second to let that adhere, and then I'm going to add them in that little nook that the bamboo created behind that first snowdrift. Then I'm going to add the Santa hat to the boy panda's head, and I'm going to put that at a little tilt to just add a bit of whimsy. And the girl panda is going to get a little bow on her forehead right near her ear. And I think that looks super cute. The rest of these images I wanted to have hanging from the bamboo, so I'm going to lay them out and figure out the placement. If you've watched any of my Plan a Card with Me videos, you know that I like to lay out my stamps ahead of time to figure out a design, which I of course did for this card too, but there is only one of those hanging ornament images in the Beachy Christmas stamp set, and there's also only one of those stockings in the Christmas Dreams stamp set. So I can only go so far as to laying out the images, and then I just kind of have to guess where everything else is going to go. So I am just taking the time now to figure out where everything is going to end up so that it looks nice and balanced. And I am also using my Cutter Bee scissors to just help me lift up that bamboo as needed to be able to slide the little objects underneath to make it look like they're really hanging from them. So once I have a layout that I like, I will start to lift those up and add my liquid glue. I'm using my Barely Art Precision Craft Glue, which I absolutely love. This was a viewer recommendation a couple of years ago, and you guys were absolutely right. It is definitely my favorite glue by far now, and I just love that super fine nozzle that allows me to get behind all of these little objects super easily. Even things like those little strings are very easy to get the glue attached without kind of like splooshing all over the place. So I'm just tucking those in as I go around, and like I said, using my scissors to just lift that up slightly so that I can slide things underneath. And because they are Teflon coated, they don't stick to the glue, so that just makes it really easy. So all that is left is to add a few little extra details to this card to take it over the top. And I had the idea to add a few little stars to the background to go along with the splatter that I did earlier. So I'm using my white Sakura Jelly Roll pen, but it really didn't show up very well. I think this is quite an old pen. So I decided to switch to a different white gel pen that I have. This is a Uniball Signo Broad. I'm going to get that going off to the side and then try to go over what I had previously done. It didn't really want to stick, so it took a couple tries to get it, but I'm going to add a few larger stars in the background as well, just to have more variety. And now that that ink is flowing really nicely, I'm going to go back over that kind of cross type star one more time. And then I'll also add 2 smaller of those cross type stars just to kind of echo it throughout the scene. Then, of course, I wanted to add some glitter, so I'm going to pull out my favorite Stardust Stickles, and I will add a bit of that. I'm going to put it on the white stripe of the ornaments, and also the white part of the stockings, and the white part of the Santa hat and the gift, and also the candy cane. And then I decided to add it to the top of the snowdrift to make those look extra frosty. And then as a last touch, I decided to also add it to all of the leaves of the bamboo, just to make those look like they're also kind of sparkling with a little bit of ice on them. And I thought that made it look extra festive. So that is going to finish up this card. I had so much fun playing with these new adorable pandas. I cannot wait to use them again on a card. And I just think they're so cute. So if you enjoyed it, please be sure to hit that like button and leave me a comment down below. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and ring that notification bell if you want to be alerted when I post new videos. All of the products will be listed and linked in the description bar below in case you'd like to pick up anything for yourself. And if you'd like to keep watching, here is day 16 of the previous 2 years of holiday card series. You can click on either one to check them out. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I hope you had a good one, and I will see you soon in another video. Bye-bye.